Hi, my name is Charity Godfrey, and I'm the agency founder of Lifescape Counseling Services. And today we have a really great friend of Lifescape and also community partner, attorney Keith Grossman. We're really privileged to have him work with us because we have the same mindset of helping people through stressful and possibly chaotic times in their life. So I contacted Keith and wanted to discuss, on my end, what I'm seeing and how he's able to help people process what they're going through as well through mediation and divorce, and how we can work together to continuously provide wraparound services for our clients, particularly through this transition period that everybody is going through right now. Emotions seem to be very heightened, and there's other factors that may have not come into play until through this transition right now, the pandemic that's going on. So welcome, Keith. If you want to tell us about yourself and all of that, we would love to hear that.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. I look forward to having this conversation. As you said, my name is Keith Grossman. I am a mediator and collaborative attorney. I assist people who are reorganizing their family in a way that is more cooperative. I do that through mediation, through collaborative divorce, and other cooperative types of methods. I've been an attorney for almost 30 years. I've been practicing in family law for most of that time, and I have been a mediator for almost 20 years. So I've seen a lot of families come through in different capacities for many years now.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Keith, I can't even remember really how we met, but I just know that we did. Do you remember?
I think that we started seeing each other's content online, and we
Okay.
started commenting and sharing information, and led to a personal meeting.
Great, wonderful. Yeah. A lot of what we do, particularly as a therapist, is we help people manage their lives and re-examine their environments to make sure it's conducive growing environment for them to take on healthier habits. And then sometimes they make those hard decisions that one of the things that's really holding them back from living a very fruitful and growth mindset life is they're having difficulties within their marriage or their relationships. So on my end, I do work with a lot of people that are making hard decisions about divorce or working through coaching plans with their partner or their loved one or their wife, husband. And a part of that is knowing a great resource like yourself, because that's out of my wheelhouse, all those different parts, right? So my job that I love so much is to manage, to provide, and to encourage healthy living. So, but a part of that, like I said, is out of my wheelhouse on what those exact pieces look like. So I really enjoy when I send my clients to you and they come back and they just can rest easy. They feel safe in your care, and they feel like they've gained a lot of knowledge when they come and see you. So when we are working with somebody who's going through that transition and grieving the loss of their relationship that they're now deciding to leave, and they come into your care, what are a couple of the things that you address with them immediately?
Well, I guess the first thing to say is that when I am working with somebody, and when they first come to me, I will have some exploration with them as far as the possibility of reconciliation, and whether that has been something that they've already explored and what methods they have taken in order to explore that. And so I always encourage them to not start a divorce process until they are 100% sure that they are ready to move forward. I tell them that the worst thing they can do is really start a divorce process, especially filing in court without knowing that they've exhausted the possibility of reconciliation, because it's a horrible time to try to reconcile after they have started the divorce process. When you start the process, and especially when you have filed in court, it just raises things to a whole new level. There's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of obligations that the court puts on you. You start hearing the other spouse say not so nice things, and you hear yourself saying not so nice things about them, and so it really raises it to a new level. So I tell them, you really have to be sure that reconciliation is not a possibility anymore. The other thing is that if they are interested in reconciliation, if there's still that possibility that they want to explore, I tell them that if they're going to do that, they really have to be working with a marriage counselor. Almost exclusively, it's been my experience that people who try to reconcile and they're not using professional assistance in doing that are not going to be successful. It's not a guarantee that they'll be successful if they use a professional, a therapist to assist them, but it enhances the possibility significantly that they will be successful. And so those are two things really that I encourage them to be thinking about right at the beginning, to make sure that they have decided reconciliation is not possible. And if they are interested in reconciling, to explore doing that and do it with a professional.
Yes, yes.
And I think that's kind of especially important right now when everybody is quarantined with each other, because all the little things really become much larger and more dramatic, and you start really focusing on all the negative stuff, and you lose perspective on whether your marriage is okay or whether it can be okay with the right assistance and the right commitment. And so I think a lot of people right now are really suffering from these negative thoughts and these enhanced problems because you're just on top of each other and you're in the house all the time, every day. So.
Sure. Yeah. And you know what? Half of my practice, I work with couples. So I do a lot of couples counseling. Sometimes I see couples that just want to enhance their relationship, or really all the way up until we can't take each other anymore. Everything the other person does is an annoyance. We can't seem to agree on anything. So I see what you're saying when you talk about the transition the nation is in right now, that everything gets really magnified, you know, and how we as therapists want to work through that is creating safe environments, right, for people in their home, even when they're with each other, and communication starts to break down. So we work really diligently on being able to use effective communication, make sure we're creating time and space for ourselves away from each other, just so we can have that autonomous time to recharge and reset. Yeah, I think that's really important to take a look at as people are spending a quite bit of deal of time together nowadays. So it's a difficult transition.
Yeah, and you know, talking about communication, the thing is that when you are in a situation like we are now, where you're just together all the time, and those negative thoughts are creeping in, you start, and I think there's a natural tendency to do this, but it gets even more enhanced in these situations. You start to place a higher priority on being right rather than placing it on having a good relationship, and it becomes a bigger problem because that's where your focus is. All you're focused in on is, am I right, rather than, you know, I'm in a loving relationship, or I want it to be a loving relationship, and I can take action to improve the relationship, but I'm not doing that, and all perspective just winds up getting messed up.
Well, sure. You know, and I completely agree with what you're saying. So the situation is magnified. People don't have a lot of space to decompress from each other. And so, plus with all the other factors going on, right? One factor we can pretty much deal with if we have a low level of coping, but all the other factors, such as a loss of the job, or a parent that's sick, or, you know, we both are still working from home, and how do we manage our children's education while we're doing that? Those are complex issues that really need complex answers, right? And lots of help and wraparound support for do that. What kind of ideas do you share with your clients when they come to you?
Well, when they come to me, and it's definitely a situation where we're moving forward with a divorce, I talk with them about what kind of divorce do they want, and I promote that it's some type of cooperative divorce. So it may be me providing a service as a mediator, so I'm not giving legal advice, and I'm working with both of them as a neutral third party. But it could be with me working as their attorney, just representing one of them, helping them to negotiate an agreement in some capacity, and I tell them that the whatever agreement that they can work out together, as long as it's, you know, fairly reasonable and well thought out, that they are most likely going to come up with a better situation for themselves than a judge could ever do for them. And I explained to them that when you talk about the judge, you know, if they ultimately have a trial, the judge knows nothing about their family, and the judge is trying to make these important decisions that are going to be long lasting in a half day or a full day trial. So they're learning everything they can about this family in 4 hours or 8 hours typically. And you know, sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's a 2 or 3 day trial, or maybe longer. But most trials are going to be a half day or a full day trial. And you're expecting the judge to take all this information in that short period of time and come up with some amazing solution. And it just doesn't work that way. And so I tell them that they can typically come up with a better agreement on their own than the judge ever could, and at a certainly lower cost. They can come up with an agreement without spending a lot of money to have to go through the whole litigation process for the judge to ultimately make these decisions for them. So I encourage them to really think about settling as much as they can, if not everything, outside of court. It doesn't mean just, you know, dropping everything that's important to you and being steamrolled, but it does mean being flexible and being reasonable. And this is an emotional time. Unfortunately, you know, I also tell my clients that unfortunately, divorce requires you to make very important decisions when you are not in an emotional state to really be making important decisions.
Right.
And but unfortunately, you have to do the best you can to manage your emotions so that you can make those decisions. And part of my role as both an attorney and a mediator is to help them understand when they're maybe not thinking clearly because of their emotions, to help them understand that maybe they're overlooking the positive aspects of whatever the settlement discussion is at the moment. So I encourage them to be thinking about working stuff outside of court. And I actually, my practice is primarily working with clients out of court, negotiating settlements. I am very, very, very keen about what cases I will take that are in the court system already.
Right.
And
you know what? When you bring up I'm sorry, Keith.
No, so they can be comfortable that I'm not trying to steer them towards litigation,
Right.
which is a fear many divorcing couples have.
Sure. And you know what? You bring up a really great point that us therapists, when we're working with people that are making these big life decisions, it's about, you know yourself best. You know your family system best. So although there's maybe tension and stress in the house right now, think about, do you want somebody else on the outside making those hard decisions? I thought that was really important when you mentioned that, because that's the same kind of language that we use with our clients as well. Right? So they're coming to us to help them, teach them how to de-stress their life, how to manage, how to self-regulate themselves, right? So that takes a lot of vulnerability and courage within itself to do that, right? But that is something that they're inviting in. They're not necessarily choosing who's going to determine what happens in their house, right? That's going to be you. That's going to be you, the encourager, to say to them, this is still your home, and you still get options on how you want that to be designed, how you want your co-parenting to look, how do you want your family system to look after you decide to divorce. So that's a really good point you make. I think that's a great visual for a lot of clients that sit down with you, because they'll take that into their heart, because that's a really hard-hitting question. You know, do you want somebody who doesn't know you just to design your life for you?
Right.
And that's the opposite of what therapy is. Therapy is an empowerment piece of, this isn't working for you, let's work together. I'll teach you. You're the expert of you. Let's work together and see how this works out. And what you're saying is very similar. So I'm glad we're having this conversation about how to help people through this transition.
And I've learned a lot from you and professionals in the therapy community to have those discussions with my clients.
Good.
So that they are, you know, thinking about that, and I'm able to have that conversation with them.
Sure, sure. Because so many people feel like out of control, right? So then you have everything that's happening right now, and a lot of it is out of people's control, to be honest, right? So I couldn't make a lie about that. That really is the truth. If somebody's getting released from their job, right? We can't do much about that piece, but we can do something about how we handle that grief piece of losing a job, or dreams we had for that vacation a year from now, right?
Yeah.
So we've got to work through those cognitive pieces. And if we're going to be making transitions such as like dissolving a marriage, or moving to a co-parenting plan, or redesigning how the family system works, it is very important for people to understand that they need to be empowered, because the option of being controlled by somebody else is not going to be helpful for them at all. So that's the collaborative conversation that I know you have with clients, and I know here at Lifescape that we do really well, are those empowering collaborative conversations, right? Because we want people to function well in the world. We want them, when they make decisions, not to sit and regret. What you were saying earlier about putting in those divorce papers really quick and then not really being sure, then trying to repair that when you when you decide not to get divorced. So you taking people step by step and being able to say, we're here to support you. These are important questions that you need to really think about before these decisions are made, is very similar to what we do here. You know, it sounds a lot like the way that I'm trained in the counseling that I do with couples. It's through Gottman, Dr. John Gottman. He's amazing. So what he talks about over 20 years is creating shared experiences. And here, Keith, that's exactly what you're talking about when you have these people that are at a real precipice in their life and they're coming to see you. You're asking them to continue having a very calm, shared experience, because they are still doing this together, even though the end result may be separate. But it is one last step of doing something together with just the two of them. You know, now if they have children, they're going to be co-parenting for a long time.
Well,
but this is still a shared experience that they're having. So how do you want to interpret that? How well are you going to take care of yourself during that transition?
and that's a great explanation, because one of the things that I see as a mediator or a collaborative attorney working with them is that I try to help them understand that at some point the court is no longer going to be in their lives. And if they have children and they're going to be co-parents, and it goes beyond just the children being minor children, because they're going to have life events after that. And so I impress upon them that at some point the court is going to be out of your life, and the court, the judge and the court system is not looking at giving them skills to be able to work together, to assist them to be able to work together in the future at some acceptable level that would be helpful and important for them. So when I'm working with them as a mediator, as a collaborative attorney, one of the things that I really love about being in that role is that I'm not just a gladiator not a gladiator, saying things that are damaging. I'm actually focused on how can I help these people communicate better? How can I help them work better together? And, I've talked with mediators, especially like newer mediators, and they're in family law specifically, they're very uncomfortable in a mediation when the spouses start really getting riled up and angry with each other, and they're really venting. And they feel like they need to step in immediately and separate them. And I am much more comfortable with letting them say what they need to say, because I don't know what kind of communication they're having outside of the room when I'm not with them. And I know there's going to be a point in time where I'm not with them, or there's nobody else that's with them. They need to learn to be able to communicate with each other in some way. So if I can help them improve their skill set to do that, then I think that's part of my role. And to do that with them, one of the things that I explain, going back to what I was saying before, about they can come up with a better agreement. I talk to them about that a good agreement is one that is both doable and durable. And so doable means that they can actually follow through on whatever they agree to. And durable means that it will last a certain amount of time, whatever that duration is supposed to be. It may not be that, you know, if the children are, you know, 10, 15 years still of being minor children, it may not mean that that agreement is supposed to last that amount of time. But if they want it to last 5 years or 6 years or 7 years, then let's work hard towards getting to an agreement that will be durable and will last that amount of time. And part of making it doable and durable is helping them have those skills where they can have those tough conversations after they leave the, you know, my office, the court system, or whatever. That's not going on if they're going to go have a trial in front of the judge. The judge is just going to be making decisions and move them on outside of the courthouse.
Gotcha. It's interesting. Yeah. So, Keith, you and I are so similar in our professionalism. I set, so when I see my couples, I do set a tone of nobody speaks higher than me. If you feel like you need a break, no problem, let me know. We can walk outside and come back. But I do allow to see how they communicate. I don't just immediately jump in, and I'll allow it until a certain point. So maybe about 10 minutes in, and then I'll just simply say, does anybody know why I allowed this to happen? You know, like, because
I never thought about that question. I like that.
Yeah, I, you know, because then they both stop and they'll look at me, and I'm like, I wanted to see how you communicate, because I want to do the best possible job I can do for you. And communication is the only problem in relationships. Everything stems from language and inflection and all of that. And it's a really great tool that I use, because it starts their self-awareness. Right? They sit and think about, oh, what was I just saying? How was I just saying that? You know, was I wrong for saying that? So you can see that everybody's wheels are turning. But I sit back, as long as everybody is safe and there's no verbal or mental abuse happening. I really sit and I listen to how they're communicating. And then, you know, if people are saying something like, well, this is how we always communicate. And I'm like, well, welcome to my office, and we're not going to do that much longer.
Yeah.
Get ready for the new way to communicate. And that's a part of like what you and I talked about, you know, the shared experience. So every day that we have like breath in our lungs and we're living on this planet, what do you want your experiences to be like? And it's not just from the car to work. It's when you come home. It's when you're walking your dog. You know, be tuned in, be intentional. What do you want your experience to look like? And it does start with that, the language piece, and knowing what you want, and being just instead of right or wrong, right? Can we be just in this situation?
I like, I really never thought about a question like that. So I really love that you shared that, because this shows the difference, you know, in terms of our trainings, because I'm sort of a holding on to therapists to learn how to be better in how to do this stuff. And so usually when I'm in that situation, I fall back on one of two things. I will usually either say to them, I would like to redirect our conversation back to, you know, where we started from, or I'll say to them, can I offer, I've heard you both talk, can I offer a different thought? And I find that that's helpful and that's beneficial. But I think it would be really powerful to be able to say, you know, do you understand why I let you both do that for the last 10 minutes? I think that would be great. So that really is helpful for me. So thank you.
Absolutely. Right. Because we, like you said earlier on this call, we want people to be very aware. We want them to be very in tune with the choices that they still have, even in a time like this where many of our choices have been taken away or reduced or whatever in people's private lives. But we do still have our cognitions. That's within our power. Our language in our head, the language that we speak out, the patience we give the person next to us, right? And a lot of those are all skills that we learn either from childhood or from a mentor or from our wisdom and our, you know, how we develop as a human being. But, you know, some of us don't. So that's why having people to care for them through this period of transition, whether, like I said, a divorce or people are separating and taking a break or co-parenting, to have people teach them how to do that properly, and then for them to come to you to know how to manage that transition, that grief period, is so important. I mean, it's such a valuable collaboration. So Keith, I really enjoyed our conversation. I really thank you for your time. I appreciate you. Is
You're
there any
welcome.
last thing you'd like to say?
Yeah, I recently wrote a blog post, and I shared a story in it, and I thought that you would find it interesting when I was thinking about it when we were talking about the communication piece. And
Okay,
so if I can take a moment to share that, I would love to do that.
let's do that.
Well, so I was referring to a story that was in the book, Have a Little Faith, written by Mitch Albom. And I don't know if you've read
Mm,
the book, but in the
okay.
book, Albom tells the story about a man who buried his wife. And at the gravesite, the man is crying, his tears are falling down his face, and he's there with his rabbi. And he turns to his rabbi and he says, I loved her. And the rabbi responds that he knows. And then the man says, no, I mean, I really loved her. And then after a pause, the man says, and I almost told her once. And so the conclusion that the rabbi shared with Mitch Albom is that nothing haunts us like the things we don't say. And I think
Right.
that that happens a lot in, in relationships that are having difficulties. I think there are a lot of things that go unsaid, and loving things that go unsaid. And we have to do a better job.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you and who you are as a human being and the work that you do in the community and our partnership with helping families stay together, sometimes apart, but function better, right? And knowing
Right.
that we can empower them to make really good decisions that essentially not only benefit them, but you and I, we want their children to benefit. We want their children to grow with such empowerment within themselves, right? We want them to know that mom and dad are doing well, whether together or not, that's their decision. But we want their children to have a healthy environment in which to grow and to develop into. So,
Yeah,
well, thank you so
that's
much.
so critically important. And I think I bring the right perspective to how to help families that are going through a divorce process, but I certainly don't have the abilities and the skills that you all have. And so to be able to say to our client that, don't just work with me, but work with a mental health professional to keep your focus and to improve your skills on these things is so important. So it's great that we can have these kind of partnerships. So I definitely appreciate you as well.
Oh, absolutely. So to everyone who's watching this video, we really hope that you enjoyed listening to two mental health advocates in the community. And, we're also an attorney and a therapist, but really we want our Southwest Florida community to do well. We want everybody to get the care that they need, to feel supported, and to feel like they have answers when they need answers. So thank you so much. And Keith, have
Thank
a
you.
great night in Southwest Florida community. Good night too.